Yeah. So guys, I hope you are able to see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So before understanding the Datadog, let's spend some time with observability. More or less, monitoring you understand. I will not stress this point too much because we all understand. I see all of you are experienced people. So, we understand. But observability, the keyword which is new, and I think some of you must be knowing about it, but for the largest goal, we should at least cover that what is observability. So sometimes we do the common mistake not setting up the monitoring or observability, stating that we have a host, web host, like hosting provider, like a cloud provider, who is giving sufficient information about the servers and all. So that is a common mistake which we perform, like AWS giving you lots of statics also. So we don't want to do anything additional on top of it. And many times what we say, like, okay, our software is doing good in the market, and there's no need to spend time with this, setting up extra team processes, tool set, training, this, that, and all. That is also a big mistake. And sometimes we say we don't have a time. Our projects, I mean, our folks are very busy with a different work, and we don't have a time for setting up all these things in an advanced way. And suddenly, what happens? System failed. Now, system failed, and before failing the system, everything was okay. Everything was working fine. CPU was good, RAM was good, disk space was good, network was good. Applications were running up and running. I mean, performance was good, but suddenly it got down. Now, what to do? I mean, you have a system matrix already in place, which was everything was correct, but system is failing because of some reason. Maybe it's got hacked. Maybe it's got hacked. Now, what to do? So then you will realize, okay, we should have gone little bit, better way to see that, not only setting up the high level monitoring, but also getting into the deep dive into the system, and we should monitor what's going on in the internal side of it. And that is, you will realize the mistake, and then probably will start doing the setting up the monitoring or observability. So what is monitoring? More or less, we know that. Okay, we collect the data from certain endpoints, and then we store it someplace, and from there we create alerts and dashboard. Something which we've been doing a lot, been doing from last 20-30 years. Nothing great about it. So some of the reasons why we like to do monitoring, because we want to analyze the long-term trend, comparing over time, or experiment the groups of servers, alerting, dashboard, and debugging purpose and also. Okay, so these are some of the primary uses of monitoring and observability data. We want alert, we want to diagnose the system, we want to have a SL and SLO in place if you are part of SRE team, and the reliable systems and also. Okay, so here, while setting up the monitoring, you understand what to monitor, how to monitor, who will collect the data, and when to monitor. These are the things which we usually do that as part of setting up a monitoring. So you decide server, applications, infrastructure, network, runtime logs, and how to monitor. Also, we define who will collect the data and means agent and all, and then when to monitor also. So these are the again continuation of the what to monitor. So we monitor the process and application check, system level check, message flow check, API level check. So these are the high level we monitor this, and I believe all of you are comfortable. So primarily we monitor for the check to make sure that availability, security monitoring, data validation, integration monitoring, data validation, and performance. So these are the ways in which we do the monitoring. Okay, so now when you go into the flow of monitoring, more or less it's like pretty same. Review indicator to monitor, collect information, share information, review meetings, implement changes, and stuff like that. This is again continuation for the last one. I'll just skip it this one. So we understand monitoring. I'll at a large part of it. So that's the reason I'm not dragging it this topic. But why this monitoring is hard? So this is important. Now look at this here. We have so much of data sources. That is a challenge. Monitoring, how to set up a monitoring with a different tool, that. But the challenge what we have in today's world is like lots of data sources are there, and that is a problem what we are experiencing it. So the some of the traditional tools are not helping us out. Okay, so if you look at this here, this is the one of the good image which we have. And here if you see that when your end user access the application, irrespective of what devices, it can be mobile, laptop or iPad or whatever it is, different browser, different region, different location, different ISP, and then hit to the load balancers, and load balancers to app server, web server, database server, different microservices, third-party libraries like payment gateway, and ultimately you get a response. So some user get a response in 300 milliseconds, some user get a response in 1.5 seconds. Okay, so the your job is to find out why this is 1.5 seconds. What was the problem in the system? Where is the problem? Is it in the network? Is it in with ISP, which is with the browser, or web server, application server, database server, third-party library? So where is the problem? So this is like a very complex system, and you want to set up a monitoring for it. Okay, so these are some of the types of monitoring which we use: white box monitoring and black box monitoring. So white box monitoring basically uh, focus on the internals of the system. Okay, something like a logs, getting deep dive into that. A black box monitoring, setting up the external visible factor of the elements like a disk, CPU, and memory, and all stuff like that. Okay, so this is some of the representatives of black box and white box. I'll just skip it because we don't need too much of things here. So here, these are the list of white box monitoring tool: Prometheus, Javix, Neuralink, App Dynamics, and Dynatrace. These are some of the black box monitoring tools: Nagios, Datadog, Sysdig, and Dynatrace. Let me tell you, when Datadog introduced, they categorized themselves into the black box monitoring. That means they were focusing on the external part of the system. But sooner they realized that this we are not going to win the market. So now you can say they are into white box also, black box also, both are possible. So these are the, when you want to implement the monitoring implementation, then these are the things you'll do. First you measure, collect, store, analyze, compute, alert, escalation, and visualize. These are the simple things which we do. I'll just skip some of the more things. Yeah, I would like to discuss this one here: golden signals. So nowadays in SRE, we have a practices more or less formalized. And when in SRE, if you're from SRE team, then you must be knowing actually, you need to first, I mean, there are different specifications also, but when you get into the setting up the observability or monitoring, then we say, hey, we need to at least set up a golden signals. Golden signal means we need to get a system latency, traffic details, saturations, okay, and then error. So these are the four golden signals of monitoring which we try to gather, and through these sessions we'll try to gather also this one. Okay, so latency, traffic, error, saturation, and this is the things. Okay, so this some of the stuff I'm skipping it because I don't want to emphasize on too much of monitoring because my goal is something else. Yeah. So now I would like to talk about the observability. So I think monitoring, why I skipped too much of discussion, because more or less we understand. Correct? My assumption is correct, right? All of you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here I'm going to discuss about the observability, which is the new key term coined from last 2 years. So the question is, what is observability? So actually, you know what? Monitoring is the most basic component in their reliability pyramid. Okay, so when the system is reliable, in that monitoring is the basic component. But are we happy with the monitoring only? Actually, no. You know what? Monitoring is dead. Yes, monitoring is dead. So I've been talking about the monitoring now also we'll say like Datadog monitoring using Datadog, but actually we are not using this keyword nowadays because at at the given circumstances of our environment, we don't need monitoring only. We need something else, and that something else has been coined in a keyword that is called observability. So anyone would like to share some of your inputs before me sharing my inputs about observability? Anyone? Anyone? What is observability as per your view?
I think it's take actions and respond.
Someone else was also commenting.
Yeah. So observability is basically the ability of a system or an application to provide the various metrics and logs, and is that even available for us to make meaningful decisions on? So, it's making your application observable so that you can understand when something is going wrong or, something is not working the way it should.
Yeah. Someone would like to add on top of it? Anything else?
Yeah, so observability, if you look at it overall, it's a measurement of how well we define and see the internal states of our system from the external outputs. Specifically looking from the customer's angle, how exactly the application behaves. There might be an application which is up, but in case if it is not serving the needs of the customers, whether it might be the functionality or it might be the slow response, right? So there are multiple factors by need from the externally we look at. So if you look at from the customer's lens, as long as it is having all the expectation met, that's what we refer here.
Yeah. So yes. So nowadays, actually, from today, probably some of you, I heard you guys. So some of you are already started using the keyword called observability. From now onwards, we should not use a monitoring because monitoring is a very small subset of observability. So let's understand this. What is observability? So here, monitoring tells you whether the system is working or not. For example, it will tell you CPU, RAM, disk, networking. It will tell you whether it's high CPU, low CPU. All this information you'll get it. Network outage, API monitoring also whether it's up or not. It will tell you what is the response time for all this thing will tell you. But observability lets you ask why is not working. It's not working, it's okay. But why? What is the reason for it? So analyze it. Maybe some of your requests you got a 404 in applications. Why this 404 has come? I want to know the complete reason for it. I don't want to know it's a 404, but rather than I want to know why it has 404. So something like that. So observability let you ask why it's not working. Observability means assembling all fragments from logs, monitoring tools, and organize them in a such a way. Okay, everything you gather first. Okay, everything. Now, what everything consists of, I'll discuss this. Everything you gather and organize them in a such a way so you will get actionable knowledge rather than you spending time with the debugging and all. Actionable knowledge, you can start taking an actions on it. Okay, so that is something which is said by observability working architecture and benefit a community. Now, once upon a time there was a monitoring. Yes, we know that. But observability is a superset of monitoring. Okay, so observability is a superset of monitoring. So observability, it provides not only high level overviews of the system health, which is monitoring also provide, but also highly granular insight into the implicit failure mode of the system. Okay, internals of the system. In addition, an observable system furnishes ample context about its inner working code level, unlocking the ability to uncover the deeper systematic issues. Monitoring, on the other hand, is the best suited to report the overall health of system and derive alerts. So here, if you see, probably will give you a little bit more visualizations for understanding the monitoring versus observability. So here you see monitoring is basically you having alerting and an overview, but observability will give you alerting plus overview plus debugging automatically, profiling, checking the dependency analysis, and anticipating the future also. So as I said, monitoring is a subset of observability. Okay, so in terms of development team, also it requires some bandwidth. So here observability also include the your testing team effort also. It's not only the monitoring team. So here best effort verification for correctness you include, and best monitoring predictable failures mode you include, and simulate the best effort for failure modes is equal to observability. So for setting up of observability, you have to combine many other stuff also. So yeah, in summary, observability is a property of system. Monitoring is an activity we perform on a system. Monitoring should address two questions. This important statement. Monitoring system should address two questions. What's broken and why? While observability cover a larger scope, monitoring is mainly used in terms of metrics monitoring. So if you see that here, these are the observability hierarchy. So here, the past data which you gather, tracing and logging, and which you can diagnose it. The present data such as matrices you can see on the dashboard. And based on that logging, tracing, matrices, you can decide predict the future also, detection, stats and signal. And that is overall you do in order to set up the observability and everywhere you work. So yeah, observability gain understanding actively, monitoring consume information passively. Observability asks a question based on hypothesis. Monitoring asks questions based on dashboard. Observability built to tame dynamic environment with changing complexity. And monitoring built to tame static environment with little variation. So basically, I would like you to tell me, what do you think about the dynamic environment and static environment? Anyone? What do you think about the dynamic environment and static environment?
So it's a cloud is basically dynamic environment where the capacity will get changed or on the logins and all. But other in monitoring side, it's a static, so like physical boxes and all.
Yeah. So anyways, physical boxes nowadays we hardly use it. So yeah, most of the time cloud only, if I'm not wrong. Maybe some of the data centers, maybe they must use it. So yeah. So dynamic environment, as you stated, yes, definitely. That you see when you set up a availability of the system, then you set up a AAC group, right? So the number of instance, let's say in cloud, in AWS, it's keep on growing and reducing, depends on your band. I mean, depends on the requirement, depends on the traffic. So you don't know what is a fixed environment, what is the fixed IPs and all. It keeps changing, right? So that's called dynamic environment. But I would like to know, that's the example of dynamic environment. That's We know that from last 20 years. But anything else we have a dynamic environment in today's world? Anything else? Any guesses?
Anything to do with social media is probably.
No, I'm talking about the environments towards the runtime environment side, not towards the endpoint.
Yeah, so if your application is a multi-tier application which is hosted in multiple zones, right? So you should be failure agnostic, right? Where you don't know whether any specific zone is having issues or any specific region is having issues in case if your application is also installed in multiple regions, right? And so that way you can consider your environment is dynamic. Even in case if there are issues, you can at a runtime without having any customer impact, and you can move around and you can change it where exactly you want to serve the customer from.
Yeah, but yeah, I was your points is also valid, but I was more focused on dynamic environment in terms of container. Nowadays we don't run application in a VM. Physical server, I don't know, maybe some data center, but I have no idea. So from last 20 years, we are running application in a virtual server. It could be private cloud or public cloud. But from last few years, if you see, we are not running in the cloud, cloud at all. Cloud means instance, virtual machines at all. So where we are running applications, we are running application in a container with the most probably Kubernetes, and Kubernetes has a pod, correct? So pod, you know, that is a uh, dynamic. That means if pod is gone, that same pod you won't get it ever in your lifetime. You get it a similar pod actually. So if you know some of you Kubernetes, you understand the deployment or stateful sets or this one replication controller and all. So you'll understand that it depends on that. Pods is keep on coming and keep on going, but and the traffic is maintained through that pods, and it's a dynamic, of course, it's highly dynamic environment. And then setting up the monitoring in that environment is very difficult, and that's where I was trying to tell you observability will help you. If you try to monitor the pod, the same pod which you are monitoring, after 1 hour or few days it will not be there, correct? So that's what I'm trying to tell you. So you understand that, right? Now dynamic and static.
Yeah.
So preferred by developers of system with variability and unknown permutation, which is observability, and monitoring used by developers of system with little changes and known permutations. So these are the differences. So yeah, monitoring availability, performance, capacity, whereas observability matters tracing and logs. So now the question is, okay, fine, I understood that probably we need to do a little bit more than monitoring, and that is called observability. But in order to set up observability, what I'm going to do? So basically there is one keyword which is called telemetry. Tele means remote. Okay. Metry means metro means measure. Because we are running a very dynamic, very distributed environment. So it's very difficult to monitor it. Though we want to set up observability, many times I'll say monitoring because of as part of habit, and also monitoring keyword is easy to pronounce, but actually we want to set up observability. So we have to collect that. We have to collect the measurement from the remote, and that we call it a melt. If someone will ask you, okay, fine, you want to set up observability, that's very good initiative, but what kind of data you want to gather? So we should say melt. So melt, M for matrices, E for events, L for logs, and L for logs and T for traces. So if you gather all these four information, that means you are closer to setting up observability. Matrix, when I say, so Windows matrices, Linux matrices, Apache matrices, Tomcat matrices. No, all these are the matrices. Events, system event, tools event, logs, logs of operating system, logs of applications, lots of API calls. Traces means the end user request the application, and measuring each call from the two different endpoint, okay, is called traces. That means understanding the response time, latency, and all stuff like that. So if you want to set up observability, you have to gather 4 important data types from the system melt. Okay, so these are the 3 pillars of observability: metrics, traces, and logs, which we have to do that. So yeah, I talked about that. What is a traces? More or less, we'll discuss again in future. So traces, which is basically a relationship between events. Matrices is measurement of an event, and logs, which is human readable events. So these are the things. So observability, if you want to set up, then that means you have to log everything, you have to monitor everything, you have to gather the traces, everything, and then visualizations, which includes dashboard and alerts. So here you see differentiating factor. So in terms of availability, monitoring will tell you which my system available. Observability will let you know how long is my system up. Performance, in terms of monitoring, is my system healthy? Observability let you ask why is my system is doing, what is my system is doing. Fault management, monitoring will let you know when and where did it occur, but observability let you know why did it occur. In terms of recovering, monitoring will tell you is my system big backup, but observability let you what can I do to prevent the issues from reoccurring. So these are the primary difference between monitoring and observability. So matrices we understand, so I'll just skip it, this one. Yeah. So now next thing is why is observability hard? So all of you at a high level, did you understood that what is observability? All of you?
Yep.
So why it's hard, and we know the answer also. So that see that how we are growing. So runtime environment is changing a lot. It's so agile, so volatile, so dynamic, so distributed. Nowadays we run in Kubernetes, so it's very difficult to keep up with the same monitoring process with the new runtime, right? See that our not only our platform for running application is changing, and which is changing a lot, but here our architecture is also changing actually. So earlier, if you remember that we had a monolithic architecture, that means everything is one software. It was very easy to monitor it. Then we migrated to SOA 20 years before, once the internet came. And then now we are running application in a microservices. Oh, so all of you are aware of what is a microservices, right? What is a microservices? Anyone would like to share that knowledge with me? Anyone? So let's participate in this session. It'll be beneficial for all of us. So anyone would like to come share with me about this microservices concept? What is a microservices?
Yeah, probably I can talk a little bit about this. So,
Yep.
I mean, like we all know, right, how monolithic applications used to work. Like everything resides in the same code base, and all the services were like wired together, and that's how it used to work. But now in the microservices world, how we have now changed the architecture is we create the services in isolation, and we try to keep that domain specific, like particular service has a certain responsibility to do, and that only activities that service perform. So this kind of like separation of concerns and building the services in smaller parts, and that can reside together, including their database and other things, whatever they have access to. And there should be some mechanism that these services can talk with each other through some upper layer. So this is kind of like concept
Yeah,
in microservices has been, yeah.
true. So guys, all of you understood what is the definition of function or method? All of you? Function at least? All of you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So earlier function means, you know that, right? Hundreds of functions we had in one software. Only one database, only one endpoint to access application. We had a web server like Apache, app server like Tomcat, and database maybe MySQL. Very simple architecture. That is SOA I'm talking about. But now what has happened because of introduction of microservices concept? Let's say you have a software, we have 200 functions. That means 200 microservices. Earlier in SOA, service oriented architecture, we had a one web server maybe and one app server. But in the microservices, we have, let's say 100 function means 100 web server, 100 app server, 100 database. So look at the complexity. Just imagine the complexity is growing for runtime. Of course, microservices is giving many other benefits also. But yeah, complexity is also growing. And that is where that we need a little bit more than monitoring. Okay, so this is the SOA image. This is the microservices architecture. Look at this, each microservices has their own database and all. And look at this here. This is the real depictions of one of the environment. Look at this. These are the microservices. And for, let's say, I'll put it in a very simple way. You log into Amazon.com and you log in, then you search the product, then you see the review, you buy the product, add into the catalog, then make a transaction, then buy, then see the order, then again some other processes also you see that. So while doing all this thing, you never know how many microservices you transaction with, maybe 30-40 microservices. So this is the real image of transaction. So now you tell me how you set up a monitoring in this dynamic environment. That's where we need a little bit extra. So now the question is, okay, fine, we understood what is observability, but which tool will help us in this? So this is a good and easy slide. So if you are curious whether your application is available, that means is it up or not? So, or application is slow, or is it broken? That's called reliability, or network availability, network performance, network reliability, or server availability, performance, and reliability. So these are the software use it. So we have a multiple solution in the market, which includes Databus, a Datadog, New Relic, Splunk, Elastic, App Dynamics, Dynatrace, and Graph. Now these are the popular solutions which we have. Apart from that, many other in the market available in the market. So our focus is on Datadog. So basically, what we will do, in summary, if I say, you know, if I want to summarize this, using Datadog, we want to set up a observability. But there is a problem. I forgot that. In order to set up observability, what types of data I want to collect it? Can you please tell me?
SLIs.
Yeah, types of data.
Can be in terms of
Logs,
logs.
metrics, and
Yeah.
traces.
Yeah, I will request you to remember only one word, which will help you. Melt. That's all. If you remember the melt, no? Simple. Melt means all the matrices I want to capture, all the logs, all the events, all the traces. Okay. So in simple way, using Datadog, I'll teach you how do we create a matrix. How do you collect a matrix? Please hear me out. How do you collect the matrix? I'll teach you how do you collect the events and logs, and how do you collect the traces. So that means I have collected all the required ingredients to set up observability. And after that, I'll teach you the alerting and dashboard. So these are the objective of the sessions. All of you understood this?
Yes.